This is Party Wall Pro, the podcast where surveyors tell you how they first started and how they've grown their business, making it easier for you to get to the top.
Well, welcome to another episode of Party Wall Pro, the podcast. I'm very excited to have Nicky Major with me, my first female guest. Very exciting. Nicky Major, one of the equity partners at Scott Davidson, who started her career 20 years ago in Dorset.
Yep.
Before coming over to London about, 12 years ago?
Yep.
Nicky focuses her practice on high-end residential and was recently elected as a fellow of the RICS. So how does that feel?
Feels great. It feels really good. As you've sort of alluded to, there aren't that many female building surveyors, which is my profession, as well as a party wall surveyor. There aren't that many female surveyors out there. And so to be elected as a fellow, for me personally, I feel tremendous. It's fantastic. It's a lot of hard work, but I'm glad I did it. Not only just to feel good in myself, but to show a lot of male surveyors out there that actually women can do it. So I'm quite chuffed with myself.
When you say hard work, what do you actually need? Sorry, because my ignorance. But what do you need to do in order to be elected as a fellow?
Okay, well, they recently changed the application beginning of last year, so I was on the cusp of the new type. Right. But generally, what you have to do is you have to prove. I think it's five subjects out of, they give you a list of 20, and so you pick your five. And obviously, I specialise in residential high-end party wall matters. I also run my own practice, so I can pick the five subject matters. And then what you have to do, you have to write only 800 words about the particular subject matter, which is quite difficult when you've got to squeeze every pertinent issue in there. And then you have to then get a client or a colleague to say, yep, that's true. She's not lying, and I can verify that. So that's what you have to do. It's quite difficult because, of course, you've got to find people who can verify that. And choose them wisely. So I chose a couple of fellows, and that's what you have to do. It sounds easy, but it's not. It's quite difficult.
Yeah. All right. Well, congratulations for that.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So, one of the few women in the industry.
Yes.
How did you decide to become a surveyor? How did you end up going to that line of work?
Well, it wasn't a decision, actually. It was, so very briefly, I did a very random set of A-levels, as you do. I didn't have any clue as to what I wanted to do at school. We didn't really have careers advice. So I did a random set of A-levels, and I thought, no idea what to do. Rather than then go to do a 4-year degree in something I didn't really know what I wanted to do, I thought, well, I'll stay at home and I'll do a little HND course. But as part of that, I had to do work experience of whatever subject I chose. And it was literally a case of opening a prospectus of a polytechnic, as they were back then, finger in the air, I'll do that course. And it happened to fall on building studies. And as part of that, like I said, I had to do work experience, and a friend of a friend of a friend worked in a surveying practice and said, well, come and do some experience with me. So I did. Happened to be the right place at the right time. The assistant building surveyor at the time had left. I was thoroughly enjoying my work experience, and they offered me a position on the basis I did my building surveying degree by way of distance learning, and thereafter then become chartered. So that's what I did. I mean, back then, building surveying was not that common, so only a few polytechnics did the course. And living in Bournemouth, the nearest polytechnic, believe it or not, was London. So I didn't actually want to commute daily to London, or it wouldn't have been daily, sorry, it would have been about twice a week. So I did the distance learning course, which meant that you had to hold down a full-time job and then do about 20 or so hours a week study.
Yeah, all right.
So there we go. So it was all a random set of events that led me to building surveying.
And so you... Sorry, so you started doing more commercial work and then switched to residential.
Yes. So, well, I did probably 70% commercial, 30% residential back when I was training.
Mhm.
And I mean, in Bournemouth, let's be honest, residential houses in Bournemouth are a smattering of bungalows and that's kind of it. So not very interesting. So I'm a commercially trained surveyor with a residential bias back then. Then I decided to move to London, bright lights and all of that excitement. An opportunity arose and I took the plunge, went to London and fell in love with obviously the London architecture, and that's when I immersed myself in residential surveying.
Right.
Uh, so so I'm commercially trained, but I know a lot about high end residential in and around London.
So is it a choice that people have to make from the start, residential versus commercial? Is there a skill set that is different?
I don't think it's a choice. I don't think you need to make a choice. When you start out doing your degree, obviously you learn everything. But there is a vocational part of your degree that you ought to immerse yourself in. But I don't think back then you need to make a decision. Um, for me, it just happened to be going with the flow, if you like. So the multidisciplinary practice that I learned in did a bit of everything, and it just so happened that they did more commercial. But I suppose the surveying of residential and commercial are completely different, especially from a construction point of view. So yes, you then, I suppose, towards the beginning to middle of your career, you need to make a decision whether you're going to choose commercial or residential. Some surveyors do both. Some surveyors do a bit of everything, which is great. Um, and building surveyors, you can turn your hand to a lot of different disciplines. It just so happens that I happen to now be a residential surveyor, but there's no reason why I can't go back and do commercial, or even, I mean, sometimes I do a bit of commercial surveying now. I do some dilapidations, I do some offices in the West End. So I don't think it's a decision you make. I think it's a case of you have to sort of learn, not on the job, it's the wrong word, but evolve with the jobs that you
Yeah,
take on.
yeah. So you came to London. An opportunity arose, as you said. Your first client, do you remember?
In London,
Yeah.
yeah, it was it was a mad it was a mad little lady, and she had a damp problem, and I was literally day one. I was literally taken to this property with one of my colleagues. He took me to the property and he said, "Right, this is the client. She's got a basement. It's very very damp. I'll see you later. Goodbye." So with that lady, she was lovely. So we had to sort out the party wall issues, obviously with chemical injecting a damp proof course, um, sourcing quotes, getting the damp specialists in, and dealing with a little mad lady. So that was my very first client. And then I had some funny party wall surveyors on the other side who thought, oh, there's a little girl, we don't like women. Uh, we'll make her life hell. And but it was a quick learning curve.
All right.
But bearing in mind, I suppose I came from an associate director back in my previous job. I did have a lot of practice in dealing with difficult people, so it wasn't so bad. But yeah, little mad lady in Pimlico, as it happens.
So you joined Scott Davidson from a another firm where you were an associate director already,
Yes.
meaning already had a practice that you then brought to Scott Davidson. How does that work?
No, what happened was, previous to Scott Davidson, I was with what I call the big boys, so large commercial multidisciplinary practices. I was with briefly a big firm in the West End, though when I joined them, it was more of a stepping stone, to be honest. But previous to that, I was with large multidisciplinary practices, working my way up the ranks. So from, assistant surveyor to building surveyor to senior surveyor, then associate director. But I found moving from Dorset area into London, you have to take a bit of a drop in your position to get into London until they, if you like, trust you, prove your worth, and then again work your way up the ranks. So yes, I joined at having been in fairly senior positions before in the commercial practice.
And so that's actually quite interesting. So the kind of the big boys versus niche or high street firms. If you were to recommend a newbie to follow a certain path, what would you say?
So a newbie let's say the newbie having just become chartered, I would say join the big boys, because they will give you the broad experience that you need as your foundation. So the big boys will do every single discipline that a building surveyor will do, from landlord and tenant issues, dilapidations, construction, design, build, specification, and party walls, rights of light, boundaries. They'll do everything. So as a newbie, recently graduated and recently chartered, I would say join the big boys, get that experience under your belt. Yes, it's going to be hard work. Yes, it's going to be daunting. Yes, you're going to be scared, but it did me the world of good to be thrown in the deep end, because you don't half learn quickly. And even for someone who's recently graduated, who's doing their APC, the Assessment of Professional Competence, which is the 2-year assessment you have to do to become chartered, I would always say join the big boys. They can give you that broad depth of experience every time. Only when you've got 5, 6, 7 years post-qualification education, PQE, then you can think, right, to make money, what can I do? I mean, let's be honest, it's all about making money and enjoying your job. Then you can then start to think about niche practices. But always, as a new graduate, even a new chartered surveyor, join the big boys, definitely.
Okay, that's good advice. So jumping back to what you were saying before, so you joined Scott Davidson, so you started your practice then from scratch at Scott Davidson.
I joined Scott Davidson, and Scott Davidson was up and running in the 80s. So it started a practice in the 80s, and I joined Nick Scott, the Scott Davidson. Mr. Davidson wasn't around; he'd left. And then I also joined Mike. Mike had been there for 15 years at the time. So I had joined a small niche practice that had a good reputation. So I was very lucky to join this practice. And they said, come join us on the basis that, if you do well, there is a future for you here. In other words, you will become partner eventually. It was very daunting, I have to say, because they made it clear that whilst we are a very good practice with a very good reputation, we are expecting you to either A, bring clients with you, or B, generate your own clients. And having never done that before, obviously the big boys, you simply get given work, do this or not. To generate your own business, clients, customers, was very daunting, especially having been told you've got to get out there and network. And that was horrendous, and I still find it horrendous. I don't like networking, but you have to do it if you're going to get business. It's simple as that. So yeah, when I joined Scott Davidson, it was like completely different.
So that's very interesting. So where do you start? Where did you start when you were told, okay, you got to bring in some clients? What was the first thing you did?
Got a coffee. No, joking. So I was given some clients, obviously.
Yeah.
I got the jobs that nobody else wanted. Let's be honest. Here's the mad woman in Pimlico, for example. Nobody wants her, so you can deal with her. But you make the most of what you get given. And so I thought, right, okay, well, what I will do the best I can with the clients that I'm given. When, for example, I do a party wall job, I make sure I am uber efficient with the other party wall surveyors. I get my name out there with the other surveyors so they know who I am. Mm-hmm. And in terms of building up clients, customers, business, if, for example, I go and collect some keys from an estate agent, I make sure I leave a business card. I make sure I meet the estate agent in question, have a good chat with them, give some personality, and just make sure that they know who I am. And so I work the clients that I'm given, and then I keep in contact. And then eventually, bit by bit, they'll remember you, and they'll say, I remember Nicky. She was the one that said hello. She was the one that spoke to me. She was the efficient one. And eventually, you will then pick up clients, word of mouth, repeat business, recommendations. Yeah. And that's how I started from the bottom of the pile, and you just keep on at it, keep working, get out there, make sure people remember you, send them an email afterwards, say, remember me, we met the other day at so and so, and just make a pain of yourself until they think, oh, let's give her a referral, shut her up.
But no, I have to say that I remember, because we met at a P&T lunch a while ago now, and I remember I was sitting next to you, and you've got this energy about you that people will remember you. So I guess it works. But in terms of, so because you mentioned networking before, any particular events that do you have to go to start showing your face somewhere, or?
Yes, I mean, there are these business forums. I mean, there is a forum called Women in Property. And so, I started off going to a couple of those forums, Women in Property. And I met a few people there, left my business cards. Other things, the RICS do a lot of events. Mainly that's surveyor-esque. So you get surveyors there, not many clients. Solicitors tend to have drinks, evenings and things that you sort of get yourself invited to. You have to be invited. You can't just turn up. They're very good because you get to meet other solicitors, builders, architects, things like that. And it's just basically in making sure that you are aware of what's going on. Estate agents, particularly around Christmas time, do cocktails in their offices, their shops. So you go along, that kind of thing. And also, what I tend to do as well is, I mean, I think long gone are the day when you can have a long boozy lunch with the client. I mean, people, unfortunately, I remember back in the day on a Friday, you didn't go back to work after lunch. Unfortunately, people don't work that way anymore. Some do, but most don't. So I find, meeting for a light lunch, I handpick a couple of solicitors, a couple of agents, meeting for coffee, that sort of thing. But I realise I've digressed now from the going to these forums.
Yeah, no, but it's a long process. There's no real shortcut, is there?
No, and this is what I keep telling my colleague Patrick in the office. I mean, he joined us a couple of years ago. And he's desperate to get a good client base. And I say to him, I said, look, I've been here for 12 years. And I said, and it started happening for me a couple of years ago. And that was 10 years ago. I said, it's a long, hard process, dogged determination. And you just got to keep at it. But the minute you stop, people will forget about you, because we just do, don't we? People forget.
Yeah.
So it's a long process. There isn't a short, sharp solution. I mean, there are a couple of surveying practices that I know who the principals are retiring, and so they have approached us and said, look, we're retiring, do you want to buy the business? And I say to them, well, but it's all about goodwill. People go to you, Mr. X, not your practice. So you can't buy that. When you retire, yes, naturally they will go elsewhere. But you can't just buy a practice and pick off or take off from where they left off. It just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, you need a transition period.
transition period, and also people have to trust you. But it's, yeah, going back to what you've said, it's a long process.
And so in terms of party wall work, so how much of your practice is focusing on party wall work?
It depends on the state of the economy, to be honest. When, yeah, we won't talk politics. Before things happened, most of our, well, I'd probably say 65% of our business was building surveys on the residential high end for purchasers, people buying property, and then the rest party wall work. Post certain events, things have changed because there aren't many transactions happening. So we are now able to turn our attention to party wall work. So now I would say 75% of our business is party wall work at the moment. But we're able, because we're small and dynamic, we're able to fluctuate between the building surveys and the party wall work. But that is all we do, building surveys and party wall work.
Yeah. And so party wall work, is that kind of as a result of your existing relationships, or is it a part of the business that you can actually focus on developing?
Bit of both. I have a lot of good relations with a lot of architects and a lot of builders, and it's those who mainly recommend us as the party wall surveyor or appoint us party wall surveyor. So they're the existing relationships, and then from those jobs you can then work it and, for example, meet the builder. If you were referred by the architect, you make sure you meet the builder who may recommend you for his next job, and then so it continues. You may strike a good relationship with the surveyor for the next door property. Under the Act, there is a mechanism whereby surveyors can appoint you if the owners don't appoint their own surveyor. So if you get in with another surveyor, you might receive further appointments from them.
Yeah.
So I think it's, as a foothold, it's working with what you've got and expanding with what you've got. And the architects are funny fish, actually. They have their preferred surveyor and they won't deviate unless you prove yourself. So it's always good to start from someone you know rather than go in cold.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, if you want to start a party wall practice, the best way to start is try and get some architects to get you some work, or what?
Absolutely. So I would say someone starting from scratch a practice, get a friendly builder. How you get a friendly builder, I have no idea, but somehow you get a friendly builder. Find a friendly architect. It might even be cold calling, popping into the office, dropping by a building site, something like that. I know it's difficult. I hate doing it, but it's the only way to start. So get on board with a builder and an architect and say to them, look, give me a chance. This is what I can do for you. Perhaps reduce your fee to begin with, and make sure you do a really good job, and then they will then recommend you for other jobs. But start with a friendly builder, friendly architect, and hopefully you should be okay.
Yeah, that's great practical advice. And so the party wall work itself.
Yeah.
What do you enjoy about it?
Okay.
Or what do you dislike about it?
Party wall work, and this is no secret. All surveyors, all good surveyors are in agreement. Party wall work has changed massively over the last 5 years or so. It used to be enjoyable. It used to be a case of, going back a bit, not many people know this, and I'll explain. Party wall surveyors we don't have clients. Once somebody appoints us, whether it's the neighbour or the person doing the work, the adjoining owner or the building owner, once they appoint us, we then can't be disinstructed because we're appointed by statute. So the law appoints us. So we work for the wall, if you like. Not many people are aware of that, and so we are impartial. So we can't then start arguing with the other surveyor for the next door neighbour, because we're meant to be the same. We're meant to be singing from the same hymn sheet. So 5 or so years, previous, that's exactly what surveyors used to do. We used to meet up, we used to agree what works needed to be done, did the schedule of condition. We were both very friendly, very happy, singing from the same hymn sheet. Brilliant. Resolved everything, produced the award, work started. Nowadays, and I don't know I have an idea why, but I won't say, so many surveyors think it's them versus you. Let's see what I can get away with. Let's see what we can get for you, Mr. Client. Oh, sorry, you're not my client, you're my owner. So, and that makes it very contentious, very confrontational. And most surveyors don't like confrontation. That's why we're surveyors, because we like buildings who don't talk back. So it's become very, very confrontational and very difficult, especially with basements. Personally, I think basements are fine, so long as they're designed correctly. They're absolutely fine. But a lot of surveyors think they're, the devil incarnate, and you shouldn't have a basement. And therefore, they want to make your life as difficult as possible. So, unfortunately, party wall work at the moment is quite confrontational, very difficult, and with it, fees are going up and up and up and up. Despite the Act saying fees have to be reasonable, it's an enabling Act. Building owners are allowed to develop their land, develop their buildings, but still adjoining owners, probably with advice from their party wall surveyors, think that they're not allowed to develop their land. Who do they think they are? So it's not as enjoyable as it used to be. Having said that, there are still a lot of what I call old school party wall surveyors who are very professional, know what they're doing, and it's those jobs that are very very nice and easy, and you get a lot of satisfaction. I mean, I like it when a big stack of awards lands on my desk and I can sign the awards, send them off with my fee account.
Yeah.
So it's not as nice as it once was, and I think that the Act does need to be updated. I mean, it only came about in 1996. It took over the London Building Acts, but I think the Act needs to be updated to quash a lot of this unnecessary aggression and me versus you. So,
All right. I would actually really love to hear what reasons you think this actually started this confrontational approach more. Is it just a general attitude of people, or
it's, I think,
greed?
I think basements have always been dug for many, 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 many years. But I think the press, having got hold of a couple of incidents involving basements, I won't mention any, and I think the press have decided to focus on basements, saying they're the worst thing ever. Look, they cause houses to collapse. Okay, one or two houses have suffered some damage that have been in the news, but they are in the minority. So I think the press hasn't helped. I think the other thing is that you don't have to be qualified to be a party wall surveyor. Anyone can be a party wall surveyor. Yeah. Anyone. Unlike a building surveyor where you ought to be chartered. So there is no governing body governing party wall surveyors, so anyone can. And I think a lot of people have decided to become party wall surveyors and they don't really understand the Act. They don't really understand the Act is an enabling Act. You don't have a client. You have an appointing owner. That is it. So I think a combination of people who are new to party wall surveying don't understand the Act, and I think all the hype surrounding basements, I think that's probably, a lot to do with it, to be honest. So I think there ought to be a body that ought to be put in place that you have to monitor party wall surveyors, and you have to be a member of. I mean, there are two clubs, well, the two predominant clubs at the moment, Pyramus and Thisbe, as you know, then the Faculty of Party Wall Surveyors. That's a relatively new-ish club. And if you are a good party wall surveyor, you will be a member of either both or one. And that's good, especially the faculty, because the faculty, you have to sit and interview, you have to answer questions and things like that.
All right. Okay. All right. So it's a stamp. Yeah, it's a stamp of approval. So, but any owner who wants to appoint a party wall surveyor has to try to see if there's a stamp of P&G or the faculty on there. All right.
Yes, absolutely.
And so, in terms of the day-to-day party wall work, I'm conscious it's been half an hour already. Tools that you use, obviously, I need to bring that up. Anything to make your life easier that you use?
I would love a machine, if you can invent one, that will do a schedule of condition, take the photographs, print it on the paper, and have everything in order. Schedules of condition for every party wall surveyor are dreadful. I mean, they take forever to do. What you're doing, you're usually you dictate into your dictaphone. There is a crack to the left of the window. Take a photo. Brilliant. There is a crack to the right of the window. Take a photo. Brilliant. But invariably, what would happen is, when you get back to the office, your secretary can't understand the dictation, so you get all sorts of funny words. Then you look at your photographs, and it's a sea of white walls with no cracks, because of course the camera doesn't really pick up a little crack on a white wall. So you're looking at your photos, you're looking at the word, and you think, oh my goodness, this is going to take me weeks now to try and resolve what on earth have I done. So if you can invent something that will do schedules of condition, put the photos with the text, and spit it out the other end, brilliant.
Okay, done. Who should I interview next? Last question.
Architects.
Oh.
Interview an architect from a party wall perspective, because they invariably they have the initial contact with the person who wants to do the work. Mm-hmm. So they get to speak to let's call them client, because they are a client for the architect.
Yeah.
They speak to their client direct, and they understand the client. And then it's the architect in some situations who then picks the party wall surveyor. So I'd be interested to know what an architect looks for in a party wall surveyor, and what an architect expects from a party wall surveyor. Yeah. That will be interesting.
Very good point. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I'll drop you a line to ask if you have anyone that you can introduce me to.
I do.
I'm sure you do. Nicky, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
No problem.
It's great chat, and I hope I see you in person again soon.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you very much.
And yeah, speak soon.
Okay.
Bye then.